to Ecuador. This is Isabella in the southwest coast of Ecuador, in a city called Loja, where a phenomenon is going to occur. News has leaked that the Guayacanes will bloom soon. Apparently, this family of trees is located in a tropical dry forest and bloom once a year after the first rains of the rainy season. Unfortunately, this marvelous event is becoming less scarce every year due to climate change and carpentry. However, the government has initiated a touristic intervention in order to prevent the endemic species from extinction. This is why a brief explanation of the life cycle of the Guayacanes will occur, with the three specific species that are Hydranthus chrysanthus, Hydranthus bilbergi, and Hydranthus certifolia. All these species bloom in astonishing yellow colors, in a lagoon full of yellow flowers. Go to the studio! Thank you, Isabella, for this valuable information. Welcome to F23 Studio. And now we will talk about the unique life of the Guayacanes. Let's move on to the taxonomy. As we know, it is a polyphyletic group coming from the order Lamiales, the family Vignoseaceae, and the genus Hydranthus. It has been three main species: Chrysanthus, bilbergi, and Ceratifolis. There has been a still debate whether it is a Tabeuia genus or a Hydranthus. However, recent studies has confirmed it is Hydranthus. How is the distribution? Well, the Hydranthus family are located in the tropical dry forest of the southwest coast of Ecuador, which has a dry season from June to September, and from December to February, a rainy season, sometimes called El Niño. The blooming, what everyone wants to see. When the first day of the rain arrives, the flowers take up to 8 days to bloom simultaneously. And with the rest of the Guayacan forest, takes up to 7 days to lose all the flowers, creating a yellow lagoon of flowers which everyone wants to see. Let's move on to the life cycle. Guayacanes, just like any other angiosperm, has two phases. The first one is the gametophyte phase, which is haploid, and the second one is the sporophyte phase, which is diploid. The gametophyte phase is the process of the formation of the gametes, starting with a megasporangium, for example the ovule, which goes through meiosis development into a megaгаметophyte that is subsequently into an ovule. Then there is the microsporangium, which is the male organ that goes through meiosis and develops into a microgametophyte, which comes to a germination of pollen grains and develops and produces a sperm. When fertilization occurs between the ovule and the sperm, an embryo is formed. The fertilized ovule becomes a seed covered in a long pod fruit, which has wings in order for wind dispersal. Once they reach an appropriate terrain, they germinate into a young sporophyte. This is when the second phase begins, and that is when they develop into a tree thanks to secondary growth and blooms with the flowers for the next cross-pollination, and the cycle starts again. The uncommon part of these plants is that they bloom once a year with the first rains of the rainy seasons. Moving on to the flower structure. It is an inflorescence diatomously branched bell flower containing 6 to 8 flowers in a ring, with a yellow corolla and a coriaceous calyx. The stamen is dynamous, and the carpel contains 2 to 10 ovaries. The pollinators in the tropical dry forest are bees, butterflies, and colibris. Let's talk about the fruit and the seed. As mentioned before, the fruit has a pod-like containing the seeds. It is green when tender and brown when mature. The seed, just like mentioned before, is thin and contains wings for wind dispersal mechanism. Moving on to the roots. Roots are essential for the uptake of nutrients located in the soil, thereby allowing plant growth but also for anchoring. There are many types of roots adapted to many different types of environments. In this case, the tropical dry forests are usually with scarcity of nutrients, and the surface has low water levels for many months. Therefore, Hydranthus roots have updated and developed from the stem in order to obtain the nutrients well below the surface, but also to grow some roots for the anchoring. These types of roots are called adventures. They are not like the tap roots because they do not have one main root, and they're not like the fibrous roots because they're not just in the surface, but they go well down into the soil. In addition, the roots have a mycorrhiza symbiotic communication with the fungus down deep inside the tropical dry soil. Moving on to the primary growth and where to uptake nutrients and grow. Plants have three main types of cells: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma, and these plants specialize in particular functions. After the seed has germinated and the stem grows, the plant uses vascular bundles in order to uptake nutrients for long distance, for example, from the roots until the leaves. The plant uses mechanisms of diffusion for short distance in roots, for example, for obtaining the nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, also water. Carbon dioxide, for example, comes from the opening of the stomata, and light arrives in the thylakoid of the leaf cells. The xylem and phloem are for the long distance. The xylem transports water and minerals through the mechanism of cohesion and adhesion, while the phloem transports sugars and minerals with a mechanism of concentration of gradient and ATP gradient. Although there is a scarce concentration of minerals in the soil, roots spread through until they find sufficient nutrients by the root hairs. One interesting fact of the Guayacanes is that when the dry season arrives, their coping mechanism to store all the nutrients for the future development of the blooming and the seed developments is that they lose their leaves. The occurrence of deciduous plants is surprising because in the tropical regions, the vast majority of the plants are evergreen. Moving on to the secondary growth. Hydros family is a deciduous tree that contains secondary growth. The trees can grow from 12 up to 20 meters. The secondary growth is produced in the vascular cambium, where the secondary xylem facing inside and the phloem facing outside develop in order to create wood, for example in the secondary xylem, and bark in the secondary phloem. The wood is composed of hardwood and sapwood. The tree, the Guayacan tree, has three main adaptations to cope with the tropical dry forests. First of all, it has a heavy wood because it stores water in the dry seasons in the part of the sapwood. Second of all, the annular ring depends on the dry and wet seasons, how intense is El Niño, and how much water the tree can support in the sapwood during the dry seasons. As you can see in the picture, the yellow marks show the annual ring from the growth of the rainy seasons. Third, the thicker bark is adapted for resistance of fire, but also for reduction of water loss. The reason why the tree is used for carpentry, specifically in construction and furniture, is because it has a heavy wood due to the strength of the sapwood. This has converted the Guayacanes into an endangered species because they do not grow now anymore in the natural habitat, but just for production of wood. Let's analyze a little bit more the leaves. The leaves of the Hydranthus are compound opposite leaves that range from 3 to 5 petals. They have a strong green color because they absorb high range of light in order to do a higher rate of photosynthesis in a shorter period of time. Because, as we mentioned before, when the dry seasons arrive, the leaves fall in order to conserve energy for the upcoming blooming and seed development. When there is less water, the stomata opening decreases and the leaves get stimulated by the ethylene hormone to start falling. Let's go into the plant development and communication. So, why do Guayacanes bloom at a specific time? Tropical rainforests are characterized by the existence of dry season, triggering leaf loss, and lasting for 2 to 8 months. The beginning of the rainy seasons also triggers the blooming of the trees. Most specifically, the blooming is controlled by hormones and the interaction of abiotic factors that control the life cycle of the plants. Let's analyze the process. First, we start with the tropical rainforest and how the trees grow. There's light accessibility, which allows the production of high rate of photosynthesis. When the dry season arrives, there's the loss of the leaves. After that, the clouds cover and the temperature changes, and there is precipitation. The first raindrop starts, and the beautiful trees bloom simultaneously. Then the flowers fall, and the cycle starts again. All depends on hormones. For example, the cytokinin, which is when seeds germinate, and rain season is present when the plant grows. So, the cytokinin hormone stimulates the seed in order to grow in the rain seasons. It also stimulates cell division during meiosis in the gametophyte phase, as we talked in the life cycle of the Guayacane. Another hormone is auxin. When the tropical rainforest has conditions of temperature and sunlight, production is the maximum for photosynthesis index. It also stimulates the expansion of the secondary growth in the cambium. Another hormone is the abscisic acid, which comes in the dry season. The opening of the stomata decreases, and it also activates the dormancy stage for the seeds or also for the dry season for the wood. And it stores water, of course, in the sapwood and other nutrients. The ethylene hormone triggers the leaf to fall for the dry season. Also triggers the communication between plants, so it can bloom simultaneously, and also the falling of the trees. Conclusion. Now that you know the life cycle of the Guayacanes, it is understandable how climate change and carpentry affect these species. Carpentry. How the carpentry production has not allowed to produce in an endemic environment, but just wood production. Not allowing the blooming to occur, there is no cross-pollination, so no genetic variation increases. Cutting the trees decreases the population, which is deforestation. For climate change, tropical dry forests have a fragile state, and the conservation is highly needed. Climate change can affect temperature, which can decide to decrease in rainfall or put it later or before. And that will happen that the flowers will bloom and they will not be ready to uptake all the nutrients later. Or for example, the dry season will last longer, triggering the hormones to stimulate the loss of leaves. Well, in that time they needed to do a lot of photosynthesis. In order to preserve the tropical dry forest, the government of Ecuador and the F23 organization has come in a tourism trip in order to understand the beautiful blooming of these trees and stimulate the conservation. The season of tourism will begin from December to February due to the fact the blooming could happen at that rate. We need some botanists and some meteorologists to estimate where is the blooming of the Guayacanes. If you are interested, just send us a message or call us. Now we know the life cycle of the Guayacane, how it works, how climate change and carpentry affect it, and how we can preserve it. Ah yes, a few years ago there was a famous pianist that performed while the blooming of the Guayacanes. Enjoy and thank you for watching.